Now, 3 John, as we move into 3 John, he's going to mention a letter he wrote that was not received, and Diotrephes maybe had something to do with destroying that letter. If that's true, 3 John is really probably 4 John, and we don't really have 3 John, and you can do with that whatever you want to do with that. Just throw that out there and make you think and wake you up between the letters here. The problem in 3 John is they're not receiving some they should be receiving. In 2 John, they were receiving some they should not have been receiving. And here there's some they should be that they're not. The elder, that's John again, unto the well-beloved Gaius, whom I love in the truth. Now, this is written to an individual. Gaius, his name means to be glad. But that's a good name to have. To be glad. Singular, beloved, writing to this Gaius, I wish above all things that thou mayest prosper and be in health, even as thy soul prospereth. That is a standard greeting from the age. We now have unearthed thousands of papyri that have this greeting on it. You know, because there are those that take this in the church and they run with the health and wealth doctrines all the way out to the nth degree. Look, I think that we should prosper. I pray for health. I'm not a moron. I don't pray to be sick. I pray to be healthy. And I pray to prosper. I think it's a wonderful thing. But Paul said, I've learned to abase and to abound. The truth is, the majority of the church around the world does not live at the level of prosperity we do. We're deceived into thinking, unless we live in one of the lifestyles of the rich and famous, that we're not prospering. And who would let a guy named Leach into the houses of the rich and famous anyway? I always wondered that. But most of the world is... you have a spigot to turn on. You've got a refrigerator. You've got a dishwasher. You've got, antibiotics. I mean, we are prospering. So, and we get deceived into thinking, that we're not. He's saying, I hope that you prosper even as your soul, Gaius. He knows his soul is prosperous. And it isn't prosper in the way we think. It's made up of 2 words. Eulogy is part of it in the noun. It actually means a well way. We would say to someone, hey, I hope things are going well. And that's basically what it means. I hope things are going well with you, Gaius, even as your soul prospers. For I rejoiced greatly when the brethren came and testified of the truth that is in thee, even as thou walkest in the truth. He loves that idea. And the tenses here indicate, let me read verse 3 again for you so you'll understand what he's saying. I rejoice greatly when the brethren continually come and testify of the truth that is in thee, even as thou walkest in the truth. What he's saying is, over and over again, I hear, Gaius, about your life and the good things that are going on and the fact that you are prospering spiritually and that you're walking in the truth. Look at verse 4. I have no greater joy than to hear that my children walk in the truth. Anybody here who's a parent understands what John is saying. And the Greek is interesting. He says, I have no greater joy than to hear that my own children are walking in the truth. And because of the construct here, most feel that Gaius is a convert of John. And how wonderful it is for you to lead someone to Christ, a friend, a relative, one of your children, and to watch as the years go by and see them continue and see them grow and see them become stronger in Christ and see them. He says, I have no greater joy than to know that my children walk in truth. That produces. Now, I would say then that the other side of that is there's probably no greater sorrow to see a son or daughter living in sin, living in compromise, going the way of the world. A prodigal, what a heartbreaking thing. Longing like the Father, watching every day. You know, it says in Nehemiah, it says, the joy of the Lord is our strength. And people, what they think that means is, the joy of the Lord, because I'm happy in Jesus, that makes me strong. The joy of the Lord is my strength. That's not what it means. It means what John is saying here. The joy of our Father in heaven, what makes him joyful is when we are strong in life circumstances. The joy of the Lord. What gives joy to the heart of a father? He's saying right here. What gives joy to the heart of a father is to see strength in his children. The joy of the Lord is my strength. And here he's saying the same thing. I have no greater joy than to hear that my children walk in truth. Beloved, thou doest faithfully. Beloved, singular, talking to Gaius, you've been faithful. Whatsoever thou doest to the brethren and to strangers, those who come, you've been faithful. What a wonderful thing, isn't it, to ever find an individual who's faithful. I'll tell you, this is a blessing in the church when somebody signs up to do something who comes. You know, because I know there's lots of reasons sometimes why that doesn't happen, but, you know, with, 13,000 people buzzing around here, we have people sign up for all kinds of things, and then sometimes you wait and they decide, everybody thinks, there's plenty of people, doesn't matter whether I come or not. But everybody's thinking that, and then nobody comes. So wonderful. Faithfulness is a wonderful thing, and it's a reflection of God's own character. He says, beloved, thou doest faithfully whatsoever thou doest. I hear that you're faithful in everything you put your hand to, which have borne witness of thy charity before the church. Those who have come back to Ephesus, it seems, where John is at this time, they say they get up in front of the church, Gaius, they mention your name, they talk about your faithfulness right in front of the church, whom if thou bring forward on their journey after a godly sort, you do well. As we send out missionaries, as we send out the prophets or the pastors from here, Gaius, if you receive them that are after a godly sort, then send them on their way. You're doing well. You're helping the work of Christ go forward. Because that for his name's sake they went forth, taking nothing of the Gentiles. Take note of that. Taking nothing of the Gentiles. I don't think we have to look to the world and learn Madison Avenue marketing schemes to get the work of Christ done. And I think he'd rather have us agonizing than organizing. I think he'd rather, and it's convicting to me. I find myself busy with stuff all the time, and I know the Lord would rather have me alone on my knees than all the time trying to organize everything. And the church certainly doesn't need to use Madison Avenue stuff and go to the unsaved world with its marketing techniques. And I think in May in Money Magazine or something, there was a big article about the churches in America and how they've become like the world in their marketing and how they market everything. We don't have to do that. And taking money from unbelievers. Of course, you remember when what's-his-name made his announcement that if he didn't get $5 million by a certain date, God was going to kill him. And then a dog track owner bailed him out. And I thought, we were getting so close to seeing whether he really heard or not. I was really curious. Now, of course, the shame of that is it ends up on Saturday Night Live, which I didn't watch. Somebody recorded it and showed it to me. You know, and so on Saturday Night Live, and, because old, Oral Roberts is telling everybody, unless I get $5 million, I'm a gourd, and God's going to kill me. So they do this whole routine where they have Charlton Heston on, and somebody's playing Oral Roberts. He's sitting behind his, desk, like counting money, and all of a sudden this light starts coming under the door, and all this smoke's coming in, and he's like real nervous, and the door kind of swings open, and it's Charlton Heston. He comes in with this white hair, white beard, white robe. He's supposed to be God with all this light and all this smoke, and he floats over the desk, and the guy's like this, and he says, "Got the money?" That's so crazy to us. We're laughing. We're believers. But that is so, to the unsaved world, that is so typical of what they think of believers. They see some of these crazy guys on TV. The reason I had to beg for money, and the reason the reason I remember the one guy, the reason I had to buy a yacht and a mansion in Florida is because I tried playing golf to release my tension, but it made me more nervous hitting that little ball all around. And when you send me your letters, I lay on top of them and pray for you, and the ink goes through my skin, and I got this condition where my doctor said I needed to relax, so I had to buy a mansion and a yacht in Florida. I could go on. One time we had a guy, and he wrote to us and said, I need money. I'm traveling on the road, and I have this old funky mattress, and I travel like in this recreational vehicle, and I need a new mattress, and if you'll send me money to get a new mattress, I will embroider your name on my pillow and pray for you every night before I go to sleep, knowing I'm going to get a good night's sleep. And we almost sent him a mattress. We thought, let's fix this guy and send him a mattress. I think it's crazy. The guy with the miracle wallet, if you send $10, he sends you the miracle wallet. If he's got a miracle wallet, why does he need my $10? Just use it. Use your miracle wallet. Don't hassle me. You had cases of them. Well, anyhow, John is commending Gaius for helping missionaries. We have missionary Steve Simpson last week. We're going to have KP come here. If we have people, we do missions in the church. The guy's going to Russia. If you can help a kid on a retreat, help a kid go to the mission field, to help the cause of Christ on its way. John is commending Gaius for doing that, and he says so that we don't ever have to look to the world. We don't want anything from the world. We want something for the world, because God so loved that world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whoever would believe would not perish but have everlasting life. And if they think we're a bunch of charlatans, it stands in the way of the message we want to bring to them. So Gaius, you're doing a good work, helping the work of Christ go forward, so we never have to look to the unsaved world to sponsor us or for their resources. We therefore ought to receive such that we might be fellow helpers to the truth. It's his whole point here. Now in verse 9 he changes. I wrote unto the church, but Diotrephes, who loveth to have the preeminence among them, receiveth us not. Wherefore, if I come, I will remember his deeds which he doeth, prating against us, prattling, spouting off his mouth, talking nonsense, prating against us with malicious words. And not content just to do that, not content therewith, neither doth he himself receive the brethren, and forbiddeth them that would. Not only won't he receive those that we sent out as emissaries of John the Apostle of the church, he said anybody in the church that wants to receive them, he forbids them, and then he throws them out of the church. So John says, if we're sending out, it could be Papias, it could be, you have these early Polycarp, these early disciples that actually knew the apostle, and they were sent out as representatives. And he says, not only is Diotrephes refusing to receive those that we send, he said anybody in the church that does receive him, he's kicking those families out of the church. That's how desperately he wants the preeminence. He wants to be front and center. He wants all of the press. And now it doesn't say that he's teaching false doctrine. It's talking about his attitude. Take note of that. It's his attitude. Love vaunteth not itself up. Love doesn't want its own, but here this man Diotrephes is determined to have the preeminence. Now, he could have listened to John. John would have loved him, because John is the one arguing with his brother about who would be the greatest in the kingdom. Had Jesus say to him, what are you guys talking about? Oh, nothing. And Jesus takes a little kid and sets him in the midst and say, the greatest in the kingdom is like a little child. John knew this attitude. He had argued with James about who was going to be the greatest. He could have said to Diotrephes, look, this is wrong. This is what he said to us. This is what he taught us. This is what he wants for us. And to be the greatest is to be servant of all. He could have told him that. And all of us in our lives, we never have to insist on our own authority. You remember one of the only 2 times in the Gospels that Jesus marvels. One of those times is with the centurion. And he sends word to Jesus and says, and Luke gives us the good rendering where he says, I also, Luke 7, am a man under authority, because I say unto one, go, and he goes, another come, and he comes. You need only speak the word, and my servant will be healed. And it says Jesus marveled, because what he understood was, as a centurion, all the authority of Rome is behind me. As long as I bow my knee to Caesar, I have the authority of a centurion. And I say to one, go, and he goes. I say to another, come, comes, because all of the authority of Rome is behind me. And Jesus, I see in your life that your knee is bowed to some throne that has tremendous authority. Because all you need to do is speak the word and it'll happen. And the lesson for all of us is we will walk in the authority of the throne that our knee is bowed to. We don't have to insist on our authority with anyone. It's not a game. Christ will always endorse his servants. He's not just Savior, he's Lord. Diotrephes knew none of that. And the Scripture's putting him before us. And it's interesting because John says, when I get there, I'm going to deal with this guy. Beloved, verse 11, follow not that which is evil, but that which is good. He that doeth good is of God. He that doeth evil hath not seen God. And isn't it interesting? Here's the apostle of love. And he names Diotrephes, puts him in a bestseller, sends it all around the world. We would think, hey, this is the apostle of love. He might have said, the tall guy with the dark hair that's always there. You know what I'm talking about. I don't want to mention his name because I want, He says Diotrephes. That's the guy. And when I get there, I'm going to deal with that guy. He names him. And sometimes that's necessary. Next name, Demetrius. Not Victor Mature. Demetrius, there's another guy here, hath good report of all men and of the truth itself. Now here's an interesting thing, okay? Diotrephes, his name means to be nourished by Zeus or Jupiter, depending on you, I guess whether you look Roman or Greek at the name. Demetrius means belonging to Demeter, which was the goddess of agriculture. Both of them have pagan names. Both of them have been named after a pagan god. Both of them are converts to Christianity. Both of them have the same background. One of them is drawing men after himself. The other one drawing men after Christ. One of them is not more qualified than the other. Both pagan names, both coming out of the world. All of the difference in the world is that one is bowing their knee to Christ and one is not. One of them, and by the way, there's not just Diotrephes, which is a male name. There are Diotrephes, I guess. Diotrephes isn't right, so it has to be Diotra something. There are men and women who refuse to recognize the leadership that God has raised up in the church because they themselves want to be something that God hasn't called them to be. And out of envy or jealousy, they refuse to cooperate. They refuse to see the flow of the Spirit or the work of the Lord. And they want something and despair for it that God hasn't given to them. Demetrius, on the other hand, hath a good report of all men and of the truth itself. Yea, and we also bear record. And you know that our record is true. Demetrius, when he comes, they said, he's got a good report of all men. You know that he's adhered to the truth, the central tenets of our faith. And he says, not only that, we ourselves bear record of this man. He says, again, I had many things to write, but I will not in ink and pen write unto thee. But I trust I shall shortly see thee, and we shall speak face to face. By the way, I think that could have been written to us this evening. I think Christ is coming soon. I trust I shall shortly see thee, and we shall speak face to face. Peace be to thee. Our friends salute thee. Greet the friends by name. What an interesting blessing this must be for Gaius, to get the letter from this old man. And what was it like? I'm going to sit down with you soon, face to face. What were those conversations like? John is the last living eyewitness. What would you have asked him if he came and sat down at your house for dinner? John. What was it like when he rebuked the wind and the sea, when you guys were all screaming in the storm? What was it like on the Mount of Transfiguration? What was it like when you and Peter ran to the tomb that morning? And you would get around to, what was the look in his eyes when he said this? What was the tone of his voice? John, did he have a sense of humor? John would have said, sure. Did you see the 12 guys he picked? More than that, look around the room. What was it like when he wept at the tomb of Lazarus? What was it like when he said, all authority in heaven and earth is given unto me? Go, make disciples of all nations, teaching them in the name of the Father, baptizing in the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. I am with you always, even to the end of the age. What was that like, John? And see, John was probably 15 years old when the Lord called him. Average lifespan in this day is 41 to 45. John's 90. He was young when the Lord called him. Those of you here that are 15, 16, can you imagine Jesus saying, drop your nets and follow me? Imagine being 16, 17, 18 and walking with him every day, looking into his face, listening to the tone of his voice. Well, he said to Thomas, blessed are those who believe, having not seen. What's it like for us today is the question. 15, 16, 17, walking with him. What is it like today, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, walking with him? I have an aunt right now who's waning. She's 95 years old. I have interesting conversations with her. And I have to say, next year, you're not going to be 94. You're going to be 96, And her question is, what is all this about? Why, and I say, look, it's okay. You can't complain. I said, we have people at church that die at 8, at 17. You're 95. You're right, I can't complain. I said, you can gripe, but you can't complain. She loves that. She thinks it's great. You gripe about the food, you can gripe about the nurses, but you can't complain. You're 95, here you are. But what I say to her is, there are days left till you go to be with Jesus now. I don't know why he lets you live, but each day you can get to know him better. We're going to do this one day at a time. And when you wake up tomorrow morning and you haven't had another stroke and you're still doing okay, you can say, Lord, here I am. I would rather be in heaven. And no, the neighbor in the room with her is 96, and she starts to cry because she's a believer. She's been waiting to go for a long time. What a bear they are. But just, from here on in, every day, get to know him better so that when you see him face to face, it's not a shock. so that when he does say, come, you can step through the veil without fear, without anxiety. Well, she says, well, I am a little afraid. I said, well, I understand. You only get to die once. It's not like if after you do it 6 or 7 times, you're more comfortable dying. I said, it's going to come one time, and you're going to cross the line, and you're going to put all of your faith on the line. There's going to be one step through the veil, like stepping out of the boat onto the water. That one step will come, and in that one step, you're going to take everything you believe, and you're going to put it on the line. And you're going to step into his presence. It's hard to believe, she says. It is hard to believe. It's unimaginable. It is unimaginable. In fact, I had not seen, ear hath heard, neither is entered in the heart of man the things that God has prepared for those who love him. But by his Spirit, he makes these things real to us. I know. What is your hope?